My name is Evelyn Harper, and I'm 63 years old. This is my story from the outskirts of Seattle, where the rain never really stops. It just pauses to catch its breath. If my usual rideshare driver hadn't taken that wrong turn one stormy November night, I would have stepped through my front door and straight into the end of everything I had left. 6 months earlier, I stood in a sterile room at Swedish Medical Center, gripping my husband Tom's hand as the monitors flatlined into one long, merciless tone. 41 years married. He was a community college English professor who could quote Frost like it was gospel. I spent decades as a senior paralegal in a mid-sized firm downtown before retiring early to care for him through the cancer. When he passed, the life insurance vanished under hospital debts, final mortgage payments, and the endless drip of living alone in a world that charges extra for solitude. I moved back into our old Craftsman house in Ballard, a neighborhood that used to feel cozy, with its brick sidewalks and coffee shops, but now just felt damp and echoing. The wooden floors creaked under my steps like they were grieving too. Our daughter lives in Portland with her family, calls our polite but brief. Grief doesn't just widen cracks, it carves new ones. Retirement wasn't in the cards. Bills don't pause for broken hearts. So I took a part-time night gig at Pacific Records Management, a nondescript warehouse facility in SoDo that stores sensitive legal docs for law firms and insurance companies. Wills, trust disputes, personal injury settlements, the kind of files people fight over in silence. My role was simple: digitize incoming boxes, cross-check metadata, flag anything that looked tampered with. Quiet work, discreet. Paid the utilities and kept the lights on. Shift ended at 11:30 p.m. The light rail stopped running early after budget cuts, and walking those industrial blocks alone at my age? No thanks. My daughter pushed me to use rideshare. I dragged my feet until one rainy night left me soaked and shaking on the curb. That's when I downloaded the app and met Marcus Reyes. His silver SUV rolled up under the sodium lights, wipers slicing through the downpour. Mid-50s, salt and pepper hair, calm eyes that didn't rush. 5-star rating, thousands of rides. I climbed in back, gave my address, and exhaled for the first time all night. Rough one, he asked, voice low over the hum of the heater. Everyone lately, I admitted. He nodded once, like he'd heard that answer before and respected it. Over the next months, Marcus became my regular. Same late pickup, same quiet route through glistening streets. He didn't pry, didn't fill silence with noise. But he noticed, the way my shoulders dropped when I sank into the seat, the nights I forgot my gloves and rubbed my hands raw. I started bringing him coffee from the break room, Keurig, black, no sugar, just how he liked it after he mentioned it once in passing. One December night, sleet rattling the roof like impatient fingers, I handed him the cup. You don't have to, he said. I know, I replied. But the cold gets inside you after a while. He took it, fingers brushing mine for half a second. That small warmth lingered longer than the coffee. By January, those 20-minute rides were the only human moments in my day. Marcus remembered details: which porch light bulb flickered when I double-checked the locks on my phone app. He used to install security systems for office buildings before a fall from a ladder wrecked his shoulder. Now he drove nights so he could sleep days and look after his aging father in a nearby assisted living. No bitterness, just facts. I told him bits about the job. A routine compliance review had turned up odd discrepancies. Scanned settlement docs with altered payout figures, originals missing from secure vaults, small tweaks that added up to big money skimmed from vulnerable claimants, widows, disabled vets, families barely scraping by. I flagged them quietly. Management called it clerical drift. I wasn't convinced. Marcus listened harder than anyone ever had. One night, as we crossed the Ballard Bridge, fog rolling off the sound like ghosts, he said softly, "You see something no one else wants to. That's dangerous in places like that." I laughed it off. It's just paperwork. The rain that winter in Seattle didn't fall. It descended. Thick, relentless sheets that turned every street into a mirror of blurred taillights and sodium glow. I'd finished my shift at Pacific Records Management, shoulders knotted from hunching over scanners, and step outside into the same cold that had been waiting all day. Marcus's SUV would be there, engine idling like a patient heartbeat, fogging the windows just enough to make the world feel softer for a minute. I'd slide into the back, hand him the travel mug of coffee, sometimes with a splash of cinnamon if I remembered, and we'd drive in that comfortable quiet. No forced chatter. No small talk about the weather we both already hated. Just the rhythm of tires on wet asphalt and the occasional soft click of the turn signal. But lately, the quiet felt different. Thicker. Like something was pressing against it from the other side. It started small. One Tuesday in late January, I noticed a discrepancy that made my stomach twist. A digital scan of a wrongful death settlement, $420,000 awarded to a retired ferry worker's widow, showed a payout of $387,000 in the system. The original hard copy, when I pulled it from the vault, clearly stated the full amount. Someone had shaved off nearly $33,000. Not enough to scream fraud on its own, but enough to notice if you were looking. I flagged it in the internal system. My supervisor, Karen, mid-40s, always smelled faintly of vanilla candle and stress, called it a rounding error from the old software migration. She told me to close the ticket. I didn't. I started pulling similar files. Elder abuse claims, slip and fall cases involving seniors, disability buyouts. Pattern after pattern. Small cuts. Tens of thousands vanishing into rerouted accounts that led nowhere useful. Always the same handful of law firm names signing off. I didn't tell anyone outside work.
Not yet.
But one night, as Marcus eased onto Leary Way, I broke the silence. I think someone's skimming money from the settlements we store, I said. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted. He didn't slam the brakes or gasp. He just adjusted the rearview mirror, so he could see my face better. How long have you suspected? 2 months. Maybe 3. It's subtle, but it's there. He drove for another block before speaking. You tell anyone? My boss brushed it off. Said it's nothing. Marcus's knuckles whitened on the wheel. People who brush things off usually know exactly what they're brushing. I laughed, nervous, thin. You sound like you've seen this before. I've seen people get hurt because no one wanted to look twice, he said quietly. My sister, she was in a nursing home abuse case years back. Settlement came through, but half disappeared before it hit her account. Lawyers said clerical error. She died waiting on the rest. The words landed heavy. I hadn't known about his sister. He'd never mentioned family beyond his dad. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be. Just be careful, Evelyn. Quiet places hide loud things. That night he waited until I was inside, porch light on, deadbolt clicked before pulling away. I watched his taillights disappear into the rain and felt a strange mix of gratitude and unease. Like I'd just been given a warning I didn't fully understand. The next week, things got weirder. I came home one Friday, shift ran late because of a server glitch, and found my side gate standing open. The latch was old, sure, but I always checked it. I always did. I stood on the wet walkway, rain dripping off my hood, staring at the dark backyard like it might stare back. Nothing moved. No footprints in the muddy strip by the fence. Still, my pulse hammered in my throat. Inside, the house smelled the same. Coffee grounds, old books, faint lavender from the diffuser Tom used to love. But something felt shifted. I walked the room slowly. Nothing obviously missing. Yet when I reached the kitchen table, my notebook, the one where I jotted file numbers, dates, oddities, was gone.
Just gone.
I'd left it there that morning, open to a page with 3 circled case IDs. I searched everywhere. Nothing. My hands shook as I texted my daughter. Did you borrow my notebook last time you visited? She replied almost instantly. No, Mom. Everything okay? I didn't answer. The following Monday, Marcus picked me up as usual. I slid in, handed him the coffee, but my fingers were ice cold. Something wrong, he asked before I even buckled. I told him about the gate, the notebook, the way the house felt watched. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he pulled over into an empty church parking lot on 15th Avenue Northwest, rain-drummed the roof like impatient fingers. Evelyn, he said, turning fully in the seat. I need you to listen close. Last week I drove a guy, regular fare, always late, always buzzed. He was on the phone the whole ride. talking about the old lady in records who's asking questions she shouldn't. He said your street name.
Twice.
Like he was making sure he remembered it. My mouth went dry. You're sure it was my street? Ballard. 17th Avenue Northwest. The craftsman with the blue door.
Yeah.
I'm sure. The world tilted. Rain blurred the windshield into streaks of red and white. Who is he? I managed. Name's Garrett Voss. Works private security contracts. Night shifts. He's got access to half the storage facilities in Soto, including yours. I pressed my palms to my eyes. This can't be happening. It is, Marcus said gently. And I think he's planning something. Soon. I looked at him, really looked. The calm driver who remembered my coffee order and waited for my lights to come on every night wasn't just polite. He was watchful, protective, the way someone becomes when they've already lost too much to carelessness. What do we do? I asked, voice cracking. Marcus started the engine again. First, we don't go home tonight. Not yet. He turned the car around, heading back toward the highway instead of my neighborhood. My heart slammed against my ribs. Where are we going? Somewhere safe, he said. And then you're going to tell me every single detail you found in those files. Because if this is what I think it is, we're not dealing with a petty thief. The rain kept falling. Harder now, like the sky itself was trying to wash something away before it could stain everything. The safe house in Fremont felt smaller with every passing minute. Rain hammered the roof like it was trying to break through and finish what Garrett Voss had started. Marcus had turned off most of the lights, leaving just the dim glow from the kitchen bulb. We sat across from each other at the rickety table, my tablet open between us, screen showing the last batch of screenshots I'd taken before fleeing. I zoomed in on one file, a medical malpractice settlement for a 72-year-old woman who'd lost her husband to negligent care at a nursing home. The original award, $675,000. The digital record now showed $612,000. The difference, $63,000, had vanished into an account labeled Vanguard Consulting LLC. A quick search on my phone, Marcus had insisted we use VPN, showed Vanguard was registered to a P.O. box in Tacoma. Same box used by Voss and Associates. This is bigger than I thought, I whispered. My voice cracked on the last word. Marcus nodded slowly. He's not just skimming. He's running a whole pipeline. Your flags were starting to light up the board. I looked up at him. The man who'd driven me home for months, who'd waited every night until my porch light flicked on, now looked different. Not tired, focused. Like a soldier who'd finally spotted the enemy after years of watching shadows. How did you know to record him? I asked. He exhaled through his nose. I didn't at first. But after the third ride where he kept muttering your street name, something clicked. I've lost people before, because I didn't pay attention. My sister, she was the first. Then my ex-wife. She left because I was always somewhere else, working double shifts, fixing alarms, never really there. I promised myself I wouldn't miss the signs again. He paused, fingers tracing the edge of his coffee mug. When I heard him say the old lady on 17th, like she was already a problem to solve, I started recording, just in case. I reached across the table and touched his wrist. First real contact since this nightmare began. His skin was warm.
Steady.
Thank you, I said. The words felt too small. He turned his hand over, let my fingers rest in his palm for a second before pulling back gently. Don't thank me yet. We still have to make sure he doesn't walk. We went through the recordings again. One clip from 2 nights earlier, Garrett in the passenger seat, slurring into his phone.
She's got copies.
I know it. Old bats like her always keep notes. If she talks, we're done. I'll handle it tonight. Back door's weak. No alarm worth a damn. My blood ran cold. The back door. The one with the loose frame Tom always meant to fix but never did. I pictured Garrett standing there in the dark, rain dripping off his coat, hand on the knob. Marcus shut off the recording. We've got enough for probable cause. But police move slow unless there's immediate threat. So what now? He stood up, paced once across the small room. We go bigger. I know a detective, Ramirez. She worked financial crimes before moving to major cases. She owes me a favor. Years ago, I installed her home security after her ex started showing up drunk. She'll listen. I nodded, but fear coiled tighter in my chest. What if he's already looking for me? What if he knows I didn't go home? Marcus stopped pacing. That's why we're not going anywhere alone. And why you're staying here tonight. I'll crash on the couch. I almost argued. I'd been alone for so long. The idea of someone else in the house felt foreign. But then I remembered the open gate, the missing notebook, the way the house had felt invaded. Okay, I said quietly. He gave a small nod. Get some rest if you can. Tomorrow, we end this. I tried to sleep on the narrow bed, but every creak of the old house made me bolt upright.
Rain.
Wind. Branches scraping the window, like fingers. At one point, I thought I heard footsteps outside, soft, deliberate. I sat frozen until Marcus knocked gently on the doorframe. It's just the neighbor's cat, he whispered. I checked. I exhaled shakily. I'm sorry. I'm jumping at everything. Don't apologize. Fear's supposed to feel like this when it's real. He didn't go back to the couch right away. He sat on the edge of the mattress, close enough that I could smell the faint cedar of his jacket. Tell me about Tom, he said softly. Something good. I swallowed the lump in my throat. He used to read to me every Sunday night. Old poetry. Frost, Whitman, sometimes Neruda when he was feeling romantic. He'd do the voices. Made me laugh until I cried. Marcus smiled, just a little. Sounds like a good man. He was. The best. Silence settled again, softer this time. After a while, Marcus spoke. My sister used to say the same thing about our dad. That he made the world feel smaller. Safer. He looked at me then, really looked. You remind me of her sometimes. Quiet strength. Doesn't quit. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I could stop them. He didn't wipe them away. He just stayed. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel empty. Morning came gray and heavy. We left the safe house at dawn, drove straight to the precinct. My heart pounded the whole way. When we walked in, Detective Ramirez was already waiting, coffee in hand, eyes sharp. Let's hear it, she said. We laid everything out. The files. The recordings. The photos Marcus had snapped of Garrett's car parked near my house 3 different nights. The audio where he talked about handling me. Ramirez listened. Then she leaned forward. We've been watching Voss for months. Never had the thread to pull. You just handed it to us. She stood. Warrants being typed now. Stay close. This ends today. As we waited in the hallway, Marcus turned to me. You ready for what comes next? I looked up at him. My quiet guardian, my unexpected ally. I've been waiting months to stop running, I said.
Yeah.
I'm ready. Outside, the rain finally slowed to a drizzle. Like the sky itself was holding its breath. The precinct hallway smelled like burnt coffee and wet coats. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving, the kind that make every wrinkle and every fear show up sharper. Detective Ramirez had taken our binder and disappeared into a back office for what felt like forever. Marcus and I sat on hard plastic chairs bolted to the wall, shoulders almost touching. Neither of us spoke much. We didn't need to. The weight of the last 12 hours sat between us like a third person. Finally, the door opened. Ramirez stepped out, sleeves rolled up, expression unreadable. We've got the warrant, she said. SWAT's rolling to Voss's house and office right now. You two did good. Real good. I let out a breath. I didn't realize I'd been holding. My hands were still trembling, but the shake felt different now. Less terror, more adrenaline crashing. Can we see what happens? I asked. Ramirez gave a small, tired smile. Not in person, but I can keep you updated. Stay here. We'll need formal statements once we bring him in. She walked away again. Marcus leaned his head back against the wall. You okay? He asked quietly. No, I admitted. But I'm not running anymore. He reached over and covered my hand with his. Just held it. No words. His palm was rough from years of tools and ladders, warm from the coffee mug he'd been gripping. I didn't pull away. For the first time in years, the touch didn't feel like pity or obligation. It felt like anchor. An hour later, maybe 2, Ramirez came back. Her face was flushed, eyes bright with the kind of energy cops get when a case finally cracks open.
They got him, she said.
Pulled him out of his garage as he was loading boxes into his truck. One-way ticket to Cancun in his pocket. Thought he could disappear before the storm hit. My throat closed. What did they find? Everything. She sat across from us, lowering her voice even though the hallway was empty. Encrypted drives in a safe under his workbench. Thousands of altered PDFs, original hard copies stashed in climate-controlled bins. Wire transfer records showing over $2.1 million diverted from settlements, mostly to elderly plaintiffs, disabled workers, families who couldn't fight back. And your name was all over it. She slid a photo across the table, taken from inside boss's home office. A corkboard covered in printouts, my house from 3 angles, my work schedule circled in red, a grainy shot of Tom from that old courthouse day. Below it, a handwritten list. Confirm she has copies. Tuesday/Friday nights clear. Back door, Jimmy or Pick. If she talks, permanent quiet. The last line was underlined twice. I stared at it until the words blurred. Rage rose up so fast it burned my chest. This wasn't random greed. This was revenge dressed up as business. Decades-old hate aimed at a dead man, redirected at his widow because I dared to notice the theft. He blamed Tom, I whispered. All these years. Ramirez nodded. From what we can piece together, yes. Your husband's testimony cost Voss his first big contract. Ruined his reputation in the industry. He rebuilt quietly, security gigs, side hustles, but the grudge never died. When he saw your name on the employee list at Pacific, it was like fate handed him a second chance. Marcus's jaw tightened. And he was going to finish it tonight. Looks that way, Ramirez said. We intercepted him before he left the driveway.
He's in holding now.
No bail hearing until morning, but the feds are already involved. Wire fraud, evidence tampering, conspiracy, stalking with intent to intimidate. Add attempted burglary, and we're looking at 20+ years minimum. I closed my eyes. The rage didn't vanish, but it shifted, sharpened into something colder, cleaner. Justice wasn't going to bring Tom back. It wasn't going to erase the nights I'd spent alone, wondering why the house felt haunted. But it was going to make sure Garrett Voss never walked free to target someone else's quiet life. Ramirez stood. We'll need you both to come in tomorrow for full statements. Video, sworn affidavits. You up for that? I opened my eyes. I've been waiting to tell this story out loud. She gave a nod of respect.
Good.
Because your voice is what's going to bury him. Marcus squeezed my hand once more before letting go. As we left the precinct, the rain had finally stopped. The sky was that bruised Seattle gray that comes right before dawn. Streetlights reflected in shallow puddles like scattered coins. Marcus opened the passenger door for me. First time I'd sat up front. Where to? He asked.
Home, I said.
I want to see it in daylight. He drove slowly through the waking city. Ballard felt different now, not safer yet, but less like a trap. When we pulled up to the Craftsman, the blue door looked the same, but the shadows around it seemed smaller. He walked me to the porch. Waited while I unlocked the deadbolt, the new one the police had recommended installing that very morning. I turned to him. You don't have to keep waiting every night anymore. He gave a half smile. Habit. Stay for coffee? I asked. Real coffee. Not the instant kind. He hesitated, then nodded. I'd like that. We stepped inside together. The house still smelled of old books and lavender. But for the first time since Tom died, it didn't feel empty. It felt like the beginning of something. The trial came fast, faster than I expected for something this tangled. Federal courthouse downtown, early spring, the kind of Seattle day where the sun finally remembers it exists and spills pale gold through the tall windows. I wore the navy blazer Tom always said made me look like I could run the world. Marcus sat 2 rows behind me in the gallery, arms crossed, eyes steady. He hadn't missed a single court date. When they called me to the stand, my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. The courtroom was quiet except for the soft scratch of pens and the occasional cough. Garrett Voss sat at the defense table in a cheap gray suit, staring at his hands. He never once looked up at me. Not when I described the missing notebook. Not when I talked about the open gate in the rain. Not even when I read aloud from the corkboard note, "If she talks, permanent quiet." That night, I invited him for dinner. Nothing fancy, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the way Tom used to make them. Marcus brought a bottle of red wine he said his dad used to like. We ate at the kitchen table, candles flickering because the power had dipped during a storm earlier. We talked about everything. His sister, his ex-wife, the son he hadn't spoken to in years, my daughter in Portland, who now called twice a week instead of once a month, Tom's Sunday poetry readings, the way grief carves space that sometimes only another broken heart can fill. After dessert, Marcus cleared the plates while I poured more wine. "You know," he said from the sink, "I used to think driving nights was the loneliest job in the world." I leaned against the doorway. "And now?" He turned off the faucet, dried his hands slowly. "Now I think the loneliest part was believing no one noticed." I walked over, stood close enough to feel the warmth coming off him. "I noticed," I said softly. He looked down at me, eyes soft in the low light. "I noticed you too, Evelyn. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't need to. Some things start quieter than that." Months later, his son came to visit. Tall, quiet, a little guarded at first. But he shook my hand like I was family. We had dinner, 3 of us now, plus Marcus's dad on speakerphone from the assisted living, laughing at old stories. I kept working nights at Pacific. New management. New safeguards. A young woman started a few weeks after the trial. Nervous, hands always cold. One shift, I brought her coffee. She looked up, surprised. "Thank you," she said. "No one's ever." "I know," I told her. "But someone should." Marcus still drives some nights, but mostly he rides with me now, front seat, talking about nothing and everything. Sometimes we just sit in comfortable silence, watching rain streak the windshield like it used to. I'm 64 now. The house still creaks. The lavender diffuser still hums. But the silence isn't heavy anymore. It's peaceful. Because sometimes the biggest revenge isn't loud or violent. It's living long enough to see the person who tried to erase you forced to face every consequence while you keep breathing, keep loving, keep noticing the people who matter. Garrett Voss took money. He took peace for a while. But he couldn't take the kindness that saved me. Or the man who chose to pay attention when the world told him not to. So if you're listening to this, wherever you are, whatever city the rain is falling on tonight, remember this. Be kind. Not because it's expected. Be kind because attention can rewrite endings. Be kind because one small gesture, one cup of coffee, one extra minute of listening can be the difference between someone walking through their door safely and never walking through it again. I gave my night driver coffee every shift. One night, he didn't take the usual route. And because of that, I'm still here. This is my true story from Seattle. Thank you for listening.